I can see by the attendance that you heard about the muffins. As we ring this bell, let us find our centers and let us acknowledge that these lands that we love, these lands where I am doing my hiking every day to prepare for the Grand Canyon hike, that these lands that we love are the ancestral lands of the Yavapai people, the Tolkepayas, the Cuevkepayas, the Wipukepas, and the Yavapais. As we acknowledge in this moment of gathering our collective hope for peace, let us hold the people, all the people who are touched by violence in this country. Let us hold the families of those who have become famous, such as George Floyd, Michael Brown, and Breonna Taylor, and those whose names we do not remember, and perhaps we never knew. And for a blessing on this peace, let us receive the gift of hope from the words of Amanda Gorman, the miracle of mourning.
Oh, Anna. Here she is. She is our step-in poet laureate because we couldn't get the video to work. Anna. You know, these young people, they don't use paper. You know, they use phones and electronics and tablets, and then they leave them in the back of the room. But here she comes.
Welcome, everyone. So these are the words of Amanda Gorman, Miracle of Mourning. Amanda Gorman is a youth poet laureate. I thought I would awaken to a world in mourning, heavy clouds crowding, a society storming. But there's something different on this golden morning, something magical in the sunlight, wide and warming. I see a dad with a stroller taking a jog. Across the street, a bright-eyed girl chases her dog. A grandma on a porch fingers her rosaries. She grins at her young neighbor who brings her groceries. While we might feel small, separate, and all alone, our people have never been more tightly tethered. Because the question isn't if we will weather this unknown, but how we will weather this unknown together. So on this meaningful morn, we mourn and we mend. Like light, we can't be broken, even when we bend. As one, we will defeat both despair and disease. We stand with healthcare heroes and all employees, with families, libraries, waiters, schools, artists, businesses, restaurants, and hospitals hit hardest. We ignite not in the light, but in lack thereof, for it is in loss that we truly learn to love. In this chaos, we will discover clarity. In suffering, we must find solidarity. For it's our grief that gives us our gratitude, shows us how to find hope if we ever shall lose it. So don't ignore the pain, give it purpose, use it.
Thank you, Anna. Appreciate that. Well, good morning. I am happy to see all of you here at Granite Peak UU in Prescott, Arizona, and greet all of you here in the congregation and those of you also on Zoom. We extend a warm welcome to everybody, and I will introduce myself. I am Kelsey Wilkes, and I am a member of the Social Justice Ministry Council, and I will be your worship associate today. I'm going to read the mission of our congregation. We are a compassionate spiritual community that celebrates diversity, nurtures the personal and spiritual growth of all ages, shares our gifts, promotes justice for all, and serves the world we live in. Please join us after the service for socializing in small groups and coffee and muffins in Davis Hall across the way. And for those of you on Zoom, you can join your breakout groups to visit with other Zoomies after the service. If you're joining for the first time, please check us out at prescottuu.org and see all of the fabulous things that are going on in this congregation, including the upcoming Empty Bowls on September 18th, for which I am getting very tired. Okay, sorry about that. If you're here in person and would like to introduce yourself, we'll have a time at the end of the service to do that. And I know I've seen some new faces today, which always warms my heart when I see that. We thank our pianist, Lena Hubin, our music director, Mary Lou Prince, and all of our Sunday morning volunteers. Now, please take a moment and put your phones or other electronics on worship mode. Before we begin our service, I do have a few announcements. We are a very busy congregation, as I said. You can see in our order of service, some of you have it in paper, others will see it online. We also have a weekly peak that sends out weekly announcements, and our View newsletter will be coming out soon. Soon works. Sandra and Robert, although it's not Sandra and Robert, Sandra and someone else and Bev are teaching the kids across the way. We have 2 new folks doing the nursery this morning, and so all of that activity is very exciting. I want to remind you that on September 6th, here at 5 p.m. will be another Movies with Meaning, and this is hosted by the Prescott Peace Builders, which fall under social justice here at Granite Peak, and it's called Disturbing the Peace. It will be at 5 p.m. and it looks at the relationship between the Palestinians and the Israeli people, or I don't remember. I'm sorry.
It's about Palestinians and Israelis who at one point hated one another, but decided to work for peace.
Thank you. That was so nicely said. The other thing I want you to save a date for is September 11th. So at 5 p.m., our choir will be performing Songs of the Earth, music by Mary Lou Prince and words by Reverend Patty, with the members of the Trinity Presbyterian Choir at Watson Lake. If you have not heard this music, this is a do not miss event. Bring your own chairs, enjoy the sunset over the lake while listening to songs inspired by the beauty of this earth. Additionally, this afternoon at 3 p.m., there will be a gathering for fun conversation at Bronco Park in the Granville area of Prescott Valley. Come for fun or come to relax in the shade. Please bring your own chair if you have one. Reverend Patty has a couple of extra ones. And Barb Nye's pies. If you haven't had Barb Nye's pies, here's a chance to sample them before the service auction in November. So please come at 3 p.m. Sharp. If you come after that, you might miss the pie, right? Okay, that's what I thought. We begin our service in the Unitarian Universalist tradition of lighting the chalice. Our chalice lighter this morning is Robert Shegog, who is one of the folks who teaches the kidlets across the street and very involved in our congregation. Today, we light the chalice, recalling that on August 28th, 1964, roughly 250,000 people gathered at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. to listen to Martin Luther King share his dream for an America without racism. 57 years later, his I Have a Dream speech continues to resonate with many Americans as they protest racial injustice and police brutality. We light this chalice in the memory of George Floyd, Jordan Edwards, Alton Sterling, Trayvon Martin, Freddie Gray, Breonna Taylor, Crystal Lindsay, Ahmaud Arbery, Ayanna Jones, Tamir Rice, Sandra Bland, Philandro Castile, Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Jayland Walker, Robert Adams, and more that we cannot recall.
Good morning. Good morning. And good morning to you on Zoom. I'm just putting this on gallery so I can see you all. There you are. Wow, wonderful to see you. I wish we could have them on that screen sometime so you could see how see all of these faces of some like Judy Davis, who's not allowed to leave right now where she's living so that to keep her safe. I have marvelous news today. The fawns came back yesterday, 2 tiny ones covered in spots with a doe walking through the area below our deck. Much needed rain came, which in some places, and I know in some of your houses, pushed at the windows and knocked at the doors and flooded fields and horse barns. And the sun rose this morning. It rose in the woods and across the plains and mountains, making those seasonal streams sparkle with light. It is good to be alive in this moment on the edge of autumn. Let us sing together our opening hymn, Spirit of Life, a Unitarian Universalist favorite. This time we're going to sing in both English and Spanish, as I hear you did many years ago. For those of you who are not familiar with the Spanish, here are the words that open this gathering to prepare you for singing. Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí, y al corazón cántale tu compasión, sopla al volar, sube en la mar, hasta moldear la justicia de la vida. Arráigame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. Let us rise in body or spirit and sing. Move in You may be seated. And now together let us say the words of our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community. Thus do we covenant together. And now let us take a breath together and listen once more to the sound of this bell. We come together each week, each of us holding our personal joys and sorrows and the joys and sorrows of this world. We feel the joy. We remember the voice of Martin Luther King Jr. in 1964 as his voice moved all through the sound, all through the world, speaking his dream of peace. We have joy for the progress that has been made, and these were given to me by Robert Shigog. And we have sorrow for that which has not been done. And let us have excitement for that which we can do together. We hold in this community the joys and sorrows, the sorrow of Dan Reardon, who lost his wife, Sandy, Ken Briefer, who is in hospice. We have flowers today. These are for Marge Groman, and those are for June Ruth, who many of us attended yesterday, a beautiful celebration of her life. We hold this country, which is such a mix of joy and sorrow. I now invite all of those who are on Zoom to write in the chat about those you are holding in your hearts. And I ask any of you who are out there who are holding joys and sorrows to give voice to those. And then I will say them so that we can include this in for our people on Zoom. Deb Walter says Silva. Is that right? Silva. U-Haul moving boxes, a great joy and a sorrow that many of us have experienced through the years. Who can? Deb Kelly, thank you. Ann Wallace, that's from Robert Shigog. Karen and Chuck Stewart from Tracy Powers. From Tony Dennis, my mother, Ruby Giovanetti. From Maria Fleury, the caregivers working quietly, hourly, and without pay. Catherine Euler, joys, new turkey hatchings, sorrows, long-term partner, dying of stage 4 cancer. Please keep us in your prayers. Kat, we will. Thank you for being here. Allison Dixon's mother, Who had a stroke? Okay, it's hard. Yeah, that's. And now we enter into a tradition brought to us by Prescott UU Fellowship. I invite you to come, bringing your joys and sorrows and taking a stone and dropping it into one of these bowls. The ripples of the water will carry your joy, concern, or sorrow into this congregation and the greater community so that we may be with you during this time. I will place 2 stones in the water to begin. And now I invite you into this time of shared silence. Please join me in a spirit of meditation and prayer. Spirit of life, we recognize in all of these stones the joys and sorrows that are on our hearts, that are in this world, that travel through our community. We ask for comfort, and we ask for people to share our joy with. We especially ask for those names we have already mentioned, and I would include also Elaine's teacup in those. May we feel the love of this community during the week when we feel alone. Amen, and may it be so. And now let us sing the song that we sing at this time, Walking, Walking with You. Walking, walking with you, walking with you is my prayer.
As we prepare for the offering this morning, let us embrace the feeling of connection and community that we have when we gather here each week. Let us remember that this congregation and its programs are supported by your generosity. We also give back to the greater community through our Seeds of Support program. This month's recipient is the Hungry Kids Project. You can read about them on the screen or in your order of service, as well as in our weekly peek. To give online, you can go to PrescottUU.org/giving, On the bottom of the left-hand side, click on Support Granite Peak to contribute. There's also a link on the chat for our video. And now please listen and enjoy the offertory music entitled Colors of the Wind, played by our pianist, Lena Hubin. Thank you, Lena. What is given in love is accepted with gratitude. Thank you and blessed be.
Hello again. I remembered this time that I was speaking. Our reading today is the 8th principle, and it says, "We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions."
Because I noticed many visitors, I just want to explain the 8th principle, the idea of principles. Does anyone not know? Well, I won't ask that. But what we hold in common as Unitarian Universalists are our principles and sources. We have now 7 principles. They are written around this room. The one in back of me is the one that's easiest to read because we just had it redone. But those are very important to us. And now there is talk of adding another, which would be the 8th principle. And that is what we were speaking about today. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. So why is another principle necessary? The website sponsored by the group that created the 8th principle addresses the question in this way. Unitarian Universalism has a history that is mixed in areas of racial justice. Leading up to and during the Civil War, we had people on both sides of abolitionism, including people like Jefferson, who was a slaveholder. Unitarians were proponents of eugenics, which led to some of the racial extremes of Nazism and apartheid in South Africa. In the 20th century, we did good work to fight racism, such as during the civil rights movement, when some of our members and ministers actually put their lives on the line. And then we passed a resolution at GA in 1997. GA is General Assembly. You'll hear more about that in the future. After a precursor resolution in 1992 to become an anti-racist, anti-oppression, multicultural, or ARAMOC organization. But the funding and the support started to wane in the 2000s, and our accountability mechanisms failed us. So now we are revisiting our UU values. In some ways, I'm reminded of the environmental movement that happened decades ago, but were interrupted. If only we had continued with alternative energy sources in the 1970s and 80s. I remember in 1970s too, when I swore if gas went over 50 cents a gallon, I'd never drive a car again. But here we are, and now we have an even bigger problem. In some way, the work around racism we remember from the civil rights era is so full of hope and promise, and it was interrupted. And that broke some hearts in our denomination and interrupted that work of belonging and of beloved community. The eighth principle is a way to directly address the primal wound of this country and thus our association, the inclusion and belonging of people of color. In 1853, Unitarian minister and abolitionist Theodore Parker said, this is who said this, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. You have heard it attributed to others, but it was indeed Theodore Parker. With the eighth principle, we are being given a chance to add our weight to that arc and bend it towards justice with accountability. Each era of this nation has been imprinted with images. The isolation of the pandemic will forever be imprinted with a photograph of George Floyd and his tragic death in 2020. Many of us sat still during this time, transfixed by the confirmation that violence against people of color was growing. And as Ferguson was still burning, more violence. And the Black Lives Matter movement grew. This is one of the backdrops out of which the eighth principle grew. But it's time to turn the tables. So let's listen to Janelle Monáe's Turntables.
Turntables. A couple of weeks ago, I was with family, siblings and their children, to celebrate a marriage on the banks of Lake Superior. It was the marriage of my youngest brother, who lost his wife 5 years ago, a marriage to his new beloved. The sense of happiness was palpable. The feeling of belonging in my family would have seemed an impossible dream decades ago. In the past, the vision of happiness in my family was a family of people who all believed in the same way, who all married someone of the opposite sex in that faith, and then had lots of children. The road from that time to the happiness we felt as a family a couple of weeks ago was a long road. And it involved a lot of inner work that nobody thought that they needed 40 years ago, of coming not only to tolerate, but to appreciate the differences that each family member would bring with them as they lived out their lives and chose mates and faiths and had children, and their children chose mates. I imagine that some of you have experienced that process in your family, those biblical 40 years that are leading up to a moment that feels like the promised land, like we experienced at my brother's wedding. Those years till you get there are trying, they're uncomfortable, and they're unsettling. And I bring up this change in my family because in some ways I believe it mirrors the change we hope for in this world, that we hope for in our Unitarian Universalist Association. We are looking for something as an association and a nation that is close to what we experienced together as a family at my brother's wedding, a place where everyone feels that they belong just as they are. The eighth principle was born out of a vision of our congregations being places of belonging for everyone. To do that, we are called to dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. Reverend Dr. Emma Jordan Simpson of the Auburn Institute suggests that to do this, we must co-create a new country. She said, America must be America for us all. It will be. But until it is, we choose citizenship in a country that does not yet exist, a country that we resolve to continue building together, that is vibrantly democratic, multi-faith, and multiracial, a city of hope where we can all thrive. Do you, out there on Zoom and out there in this sanctuary, do you have a vision of that city of hope where we can all thrive? For me, that city of hope feels here like my brother's wedding did 2 weeks ago. And it looks like Liberty Park, a public park in the middle of Salt Lake City on a Sunday afternoon, where people of all races were playing, having picnics and dancing. I imagine that city of hope, like that park, smells of all kinds of food, some familiar and much not. And it sounds like all kinds of music and different languages and lots of drumming. We need a vision to have energy for that long haul of building together a community that is vibrantly democratic, multi-faith, multiracial, a city of hope, a sanctuary for worship services where all can belong and all can thrive. I wonder, and this is a real question, where does your imagination take you? Let us sit for just a moment in silence and imagine together that country. What does it look like, smell like? What do we hear? I'm going to give you about 30 seconds. Someday we will have the ability to project what is in our minds on a screen, I believe. But I wish I could see all of the images that are coming to you out there and to you on Zoom. I believe in our ability as a community to envision that city of hope, that country that is beyond the one that we live in, that country where all are loved and all are whole. Poets are giving us visions that could become a mantra for us instead of our newspapers, to read in the morning over breakfast, to keep us from inaction and inertia that are our mortal enemies as we strive for wholeness. Because, as Amanda Gorman told the nation in her visionary poem at the inauguration, we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain, she continues, if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change, our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left with. Every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise through the gold-limbed hills in the west. We will rise from the windswept northeast where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation. In every corner called our country, our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light. If only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it. I believe that we are brave enough to make a vision that will guide us through the days and weeks, months and years ahead. A vision that will create that city of hope, that new land. We must fight inertia and inaction. That's my spiritual practice every day, because those are not gifts that we want to give the next generation. We are being called upon to hope. And because hope is built on action, let us work towards that vision, first with our families and our neighbors, And today, as part of our service, not as an add-in after our service, Anna Fleury and our social justice team are going to lead us in some actions for the greater community and for this country that will take us closer to that city of hope. And there will be muffins. Amen. And may it be so. Let us rise in body or spirit and sing a song for wisdom. Wisdom that will guide our feet while we run this race. Let us sing together, Guide My Feet. And for those of you who would like to sing parts, there were hymnals you should have gotten at the beginning, but you can go grab at the entrance of the room. Let us sing together, Guide My Feet. Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race, 'cause I don't want to run this race in vain. Hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race, for I don't want to run this race in vain. Stand by me while I run this race. Stand by me while I run this race. Stand by me while I run this race, for I don't want to run this race in vain. Search my heart while I run this race. Search my heart while I run this race. Search my heart while I run this race, for I don't want to run this race in vain. And those of you who are on Zoom also will have a role in this, so stay where you are.
Hello. I am so excited about this service today. And I was talking to Paula last night, and she reminded me of something, what it means to be a good trouble congregation from the UU The Vote website. They say, we know that being a Unitarian Universalist isn't just about believing in justice, equity, and compassion, and we certainly do believe that as Unitarians, but it's about what we do to make those values come alive, and that's what we're doing today. So some of you may have already heard about Good Trouble congregations from UU The Vote. If you haven't, I encourage you to look it up, because today we are taking our first steps to hopefully become a Good Trouble congregation. Good Trouble congregations are congregations that answer that call to organize their communities and engage in the multiple and necessary tactics that will help us win big with our communities in 2022. And there are criteria that involve letter writing and petition signing and phone banking, which we will be doing today. So as you may have figured out, my role today is the call to action. Before we go into the details, I just wanted to lead us in a short moment of presence. So I invite you to check in with your bodies. When we get invited to be a part of social justice actions, what emotions come up for us? And just let yourself feel it. Is it excitement, anxiety, guilt, impatience, frustration, balance, imbalance, energy, depletion? Whatever's coming up for you, I invite us to silently name those feelings Be with those feelings for a moment. Take a deep breath without judgment, just noticing what's coming up. And now if you can take a moment to find where you're feeling that in your body. Is it your belly, your chest, your neck, your head? We're going to gather those feelings and release them. So if you're feeling something in your chest, like literally gather it up, take a breath, and release. You can do that together. And just give your body a little shake. Because now I invite you to call in some new feelings. I invite you to call in presence. As much as we can be, we let our deep breaths ground us in this sacred space. Let ourselves be aware of the space, whether physical or virtual, and the people around us. I invite us to call in slowness and ease. There's no rush in this moment. We can be slow together. And calling in connection. If it feels right, take in the space surrounding us. Feel each other's love and power in this moment. Let our collective strength in this togetherness fill you up, fill us up. And finally, joy. If you feel moved to do so, you can check in with what the people around you are comfortable with and either link hands or you can raise them and give them a little sparkle. For the people who are on Zoom, please feel free to join us by raising your hands. You can sit, you can stand, lie down, move around, whatever feels most joyful to you in this moment, because we're going to call in some joy together. So we welcome the joy by linking our hearts, and we covenant together that we are not powerless. Let's say it together. We are not powerless. And together we are powerful. We are powerful. And finally, by being together, we are already changing the world. By being together, we are already changing the world. And speaking of joy, I made stickers, not only muffins, but stickers, y'all. Today's going to be fun. So we have a You the Vote sticker and a sticker that says, "We Heart Public Schools." If you are on Zoom, you have an opportunity to participate, and I promise I will get you your stickers. And because we are a congregation that celebrates the power of togetherness, we have not one, not two, but 3 options for actions today. So in the sanctuary, we have a You the Vote letter writing and petition signing over there for public schools. And on Zoom, we'll be doing a mini phone banking with our friends. So yes, if you're in person, once you've completed an action, you'll get a sticker. So if you want both of them, complete both actions, the petition and the letter writing. For the You the Vote letter writing, Paula will tell you more about that, Paula and Robert. It'll be right over there. And we're going to be each writing about 2 to 3 letters if you can. It may be helpful to use the hymnals as backing for letter writing if you want. And there are muffins involved with this, as we've already heard. So after this, you'll head on over there and add your thoughts and letters, letting people know why voting and voter turnout is important to you. And the second part is petition signing. We have our wonderful Diane McQueen. Can you wave? Hello, Diane, joining us from Save Our Schools. So if you can sign and bonus, if you can commit to getting, between 1 and 10 additional signatures with some take-home petitions. So the petition we're talking about today is called Stop Voucher Expansion. And I'm just going to read you the quick blurb from their website for those who may not be familiar. I know a lot of you have already signed it. So ESA vouchers, in other words, empowerment scholarship accounts, use tax dollars to subsidize private schools tuition, online learning, and homeschooling. Vouchers take more money away from our already underfunded schools, which unfortunately are currently dead last in the nation for per pupil spending. We got to change that, folks. And official state estimates predict that a universal ESA voucher expansion would cost the state millions, which would all come from cuts to public education. So in June 2022, the Arizona legislature voted to effectively dismantle public education by passing universal ESA vouchers, which actually defies the will of 1.5 million Arizona voters who overwhelmingly rejected this ESA expansion in 2018 through Prop 305. So we have one chance to stop this bill from going into effect. It's a referendum of the universal ESA voucher expansion, called Stop Voucher Expansion. So we have to collect 118,000 valid signatures before December 24th. So think about the date today, it's the 28th. We got to get going to stop universal ESA voucher expansion. This will put the law on hold until the November 2024 election, when we expect Arizona voters to reject again this destructive universal vouchers once and for all. So why are petitions important? I think a lot of you already know. Just this week, a different proposition actually didn't make it on the Arizona ballot because it was shy by, wait for it, 1,458 signatures. That is nothing. So on the flip side, really exciting news this week, because Stop Dark Money finally made it on the ballot. Yay! And Diane has been doing some amazing work around that, which you can talk to her about. So each and every signature makes a difference, and our deadline to get those petitions back, if you do take one out, is September 15th. So I encourage everyone who can to pick one up. And then Zoom, I'll tell you all more about this, but you'll be calling 3 of your friends or texting, whatever is easier, about, oh, wow, just lost my place, the petition, and also to make sure that they have a voting plan. So please be thinking about 3 friends, and I will meet with you all after this to give you more information and a script for that. And as I mentioned, you get a sticker for each action you complete. Zoom, if you do the phone call, you get 2 stickers. And again, muffins, just really making sure everyone's bought in here. Really driving home our message of joy. And finally, if you are looking for something else to do this week to really get out in the community, on, I believe it's Wednesday, the 31st, there is going to be a school board forum, and there is more information about that in the weekly. It's an opportunity to hear from all the candidates who make decisions about how our country's history is taught and whether schools get to be inclusive for LGBTQ+ youth. So look for that in the weekly. What? 5 p.m. Mile High Middle School, Hendricks Auditorium. Yes, thank you. All right, so one more time, let's get powered up. Say it with me. We are not powerless. We are not powerless. We are powerful. We are powerful. And by being together, we are already changing the world. By being together, we are already changing the world. All right, let's go.
Oh, sorry.
I forgot to, we didn't have a place because we wanted to have the action as part of the service, because that is what the 8th principle's asking us to do, is to put our ideas, our thoughts into action. While they're preparing, is there anyone here who is here for the first time who would like to introduce themselves? No, but we're not going to stay. We're not doing that to people. It's their choice. Okay, so I'll just be walking around. So I hope that you enjoy. We're going to try to be doing this once a month. I hope that you enjoy a time where action is a part of our of what we do in this place. Thank you, Anna.